My name is Mitch Benner, and we started this podcast to remove the stigma around sobriety from addiction.
My name is Aaron Nelson. Through our stories and the stories of our guests, we hope to help you find a new path.
All right, guys, welcome back to Shattered Darkness. Today we have a special guest with us. They're all special every week, but this is a guy that I just recently met after sobriety, and he is doing some amazing things around comedy and sobriety, and he's just got an amazing vision. So please welcome Joe Huisman.
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 Yeah.
Joe Huisman.
Yeah.
Excuse me. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. So Joe started Second Chance Comedy, and this was after he got sober. And I'll let you say a little bit more about it. But basically, it's a comedy show that features comedians that are sober from their addiction. And you've been selling out quite a few shows, and I've had the chance to see him a couple times. But yeah, just want to welcome Joe. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for being on here. We really appreciate it. So before we get into your story, just one housekeeping thing to our listeners. I just want to say, so we're trying to get a little bit more audience interaction and feedback. And we'd love it if you guys would leave us questions that you want us to answer during our episodes. We can make a little segment, whatever, that we answer some questions, some things that are personal that are actually going on in your lives right now. Make it a little bit more relatable and, hopefully help you guys out. So,
and to that note too, let us know if you don't like anything on the show.
Yeah, for sure.
This is 100% for you. So if there's anything at all, we want to hear. We're big boys. We can take the criticism.
Well, episodes are too long. Like that's one thing I've been hearing. That's really probably the only negative feedback I've gotten, but, and I wouldn't even call it negative feedback. That's just any feedback is good feedback. So yeah, interact with us. You can email us at shatterdarkness5@gmail.com, or you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Music. Or Apple Podcasts. But anyways, we're going to get into Joe's story. So we always do this. Where do you want to start your story?
Where do I want to start my story?
Do you want to start at day one, like birth? Oh, no, I'm just kidding.
Well, it depends if you want to talk about my journey with addiction, or if you want to talk about the show, or kind of both. I mean,
kind of both. Yeah. Like maybe we touch a little bit on your journey with addiction, how long that was, when you got sober, what that process looked like for you. And then kind of what you're up to today, comedy show, things like that.
Sure. Yeah. So my drug addiction, I guess, probably started back when I was, 15 was probably the first time I smoked pot, and 16 was the first time I did cocaine. I had trouble with alcohol in that it didn't sit well with me, and so I'd go to parties and I'd have a couple of beers, and that would just ruin my night. And somebody gave me a line of cocaine, and that was like, oh wow, now I can drink like everybody else, even more. So I started getting, I'd pick up a quarter gram of cocaine before I'd go out, just so I'd have something to keep me from getting drunk. And pretty soon those quarters became half grams, then 16ths, and then 8 balls. And pretty soon I stopped caring as much about going out and being social and was focused more on the drugs. And by my early 20s, I was I actually fell into a unique situation with I don't know if you're familiar with the big drought with marijuana back in, what was it, probably, the 90s. You couldn't buy weed anywhere. Like nobody had it. And I was one of the first people to actually find a connection. And so I instantly became the successful pot dealer. So I had plenty of money. And that fueled my cocaine addiction. And it just kind of consumed me. And so for my early 20s, I was doing coke pretty much every night. And then one night, probably 23, 24 years old, we couldn't find any cocaine. And a friend of mine said, well, I can get some rock if you're interested. And it's like, oh, no, I can't do that. That's crossing the line, And he convinced me, and that just changed everything, just leveled up my addiction from there. Yeah. And so it just, from that day forward, that's all I cared about, was where I was going to get that next hit, and that lasted until I was about 30. I had 3 DWIs at that time, and I was on probation for my third. And tested positive for a UA and had to do a weekend in jail. And yeah, so about
So let me back up. You
Sure.
said you started at 15, 16 with kind of partying and things like that. And from what I understand from what you just said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but really it started because it kind of brought you out of your shell a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I think I've done a lot of reflection on this too, and it was probably about 10 years ago. I was talking to some pastor, and I don't know why I was telling him my story with drug addiction, and he asked me, he said, "Have you ever like sat down and really figured out what led you down that road in the first place?" I'm like, "No. Why?
Yeah.
Why do I need to? I don't do drugs anymore." And it took another 6-8 years after that before I realized, oh, I haven't dealt with any of the
Right.
underlying crap that led me down that.
Yeah, exactly.
I wasn't abusing substances anymore, but I was still messing up my life in other ways. And so, but yeah, I really think, I think just kind of my situation, the way I was brought up, and my parents. I was the youngest of 6 kids, and my parents were pretty much starting to have marital troubles by the time I was old enough to know what was going on. And my brothers were 10 years older than me, so they were kind of off in their own world. And then I had 3 sisters that were older than me, and so I, Catholic school, so all my friends were far away, and so I just learned how to be alone, from a small child forward. And so I think finding drugs and alcohol, it's really easy to fit in, right? Like it's easy to find a place to belong if you find people that want to do the same substances that you want to do. Like you don't need to have a lot in common with somebody to smoke crack with them.
Right, totally. Well, and that's the same thing. Like, yeah, you don't need to have a lot in common with anybody to just get fucked up.
Yeah,
with them,
exactly. Yeah. It's not like, well, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to smoke crack, but Joe's really into woodworking and I don't like that. So I'm going to find someone else to smoke crack with. Yeah. That's not how that works. Right. But yeah,
Okay.
it was kind of just trying to fit in, I think but yeah, I think the cocaine actually, like I said, what I would do is I would go to parties and a lot of times, when we were teenagers, we could only get like 3-2 beer, which was even worse. But I'd go to parties and I'd be nervous. And so I'd just sit there and keep pulling sips off my beer, trying to like look busy and look normal.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize I'd just be chugging beers one sip at a time. And so I'd just get fucked up really quick. And then I was just a disaster. Like then I just wanted to go home and die. And so then one day somebody gave me some Coke, and it's like, wow, now I can do that all night long, and it's never going to stop.
So did the cocaine? Do you feel like it kind of brought you out of your shell a little bit, made you a little bit more, in your opinion, personable at those parties?
I think at first with small quantities, but then when it got into larger quantities, it just numbed the world.
See, and that's what I like that, I don't like, that's probably the wrong term to use, but like, I'm interested in, what kept it going, because there's so many people in the world that are like, oh yeah, I tried it and left it, and cocaine for me, like I tried it a lot, but I never got addicted to it, which surprised me.
Explain, tried it a lot.
Well, we never did it consistently like that. I would always do it when it was around. I never bought it. I never seeked it out. Like if it was around, I would do it,
Right.
And so I've done it a lot, but I never got addicted to it. And so I'm just curious, like,
and I just read something recently that said that only about 10% of people that try cocaine actually get addicted to it. Like
Really?
I think the majority of people can just do it casually.
I wonder if that's because of the stigma around it.
I think that's a big part of it. I mean, honestly, like when I started, it was interesting because I was at a friend's house at a party, and there's a small get together, and there was some guy there I'd never met before, and he had some Coke, and they offered me a line, and the people that I hung out with, I was the rebel in the group.
Okay.
So wait, these fuckers are doing this shit. It can't be that bad, so it's like kind of this reverse peer pressure thing.
Gotcha.
I'm supposed to be the rebel, so I've got to be able to do this too. But I just loved it. I was the only one that really took to it from there. So.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And then once I found my own connection, it was just like I said, I was a closet case user, and it was just my little way of keeping sober at a party, without getting wasted. And
it's crazy how you can justify that. Like stay sober by doing a bunch of Coke.
Yeah,
that's just a weird thing.
Could just not drink, but no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Well, meth was, I don't know. We did. I occasionally got into crank. That's what we called it back then, which I think is just bathtub meth. I don't know, but yeah, that was incredible. Like you could be passed out drunk and do the tiniest line of crank and then drink another 12 pack. It's just crazy
Wow.
what that would do to your body. But
How did you feel after
Yeah,
that?
that's something I never did.
I don't know, man. It's like that was like I never really felt high from crank, but I did. Like you just don't sleep, and then
Yeah.
you get the sleep deprivation, hallucinations, and all that fun stuff. So, but
That's
yeah.
crazy. So when did cocaine for you go into, was it crack cocaine?
Yeah.
So when did that like escalate?
So it was probably when I was about 23-ish, 23, 24, somewhere in there. Like I said, we couldn't score any powder that night. And a friend of mine said, well, I'm pretty sure we can get some rock. And I was pretty apprehensive about that because that to me seemed like, well, that's like real drugs, right? Like,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
crossing a line or something. Even though I was snorting an 8-ball a day, it's not like I didn't have a problem. But yeah, and then it's, once I tried that, that was just incredible. I mean, just the feeling of that, the instant euphoria that you felt with that.
Yeah.
And then it just became, I was still kind of more focused on the powder for a while, but I did like smoking it. And then I learned how to cook it myself. Like, so then I would buy powder and shake it into a boulder myself and smoke it. And that was pure, like the best, you know?
So how long overall? So you're 23 at this age. When did you get sober?
I was 30 when I quit doing drugs. Yeah.
Okay.
When I quit doing coke and crack.
And were you married at this time?
No. Yeah, I wasn't exactly successful with relationships. I mean, it's funny too, because I don't, even looking back on it, it seems like a different life, but you know, I was basically spending all my money on drugs, like, you know, didn't have anything, washing my one pair of jeans in a bathtub with Dawn dish soap type broke, you know, because if I had quarters for the washer, I had quarters to get drugs, you know.
Yeah,
It's just
totally,
kind of
man. That's crazy.
so yeah, and it yeah, so I didn't really have much of anything when
Yeah.
I got sober.
Then you mentioned too that, you know, later on in life, you kind of looked back, you were talking to a pastor and you kind of look back and you're like, oh, I haven't dealt with these traumas or these things in my life. You know, are you able to today identify what those things are?
I think a lot, yeah, and it's interesting too, because like for a while I didn't think that I even had a right to talk about my past drug addiction, because for me, it was more like I always attributed it to divine intervention. You know, I had to do that weekend in jail, and something clicked in my brain that weekend, and I never touched drugs again. And so I didn't have to like white knuckle sobriety like a lot of people had to go through. So I kind of felt like it was more of a, whew, that was a close one, you know,
Yeah,
glad I got out of that, you know.
that
And so then I just went on with my life, you know, and I went to school, I paid off all my debt, and I developed a career and eventually got married, bought a house, did all the normal things. And so it was just I never really thought that I had a right to talk about my addiction because of how I got sober.
because it was too easy.
Yeah, like it wasn't fair or something. Like
Sure.
it's kind of a weird thing.
So let me ask you this: you were in detox when you decided to get sober? Is that?
I was just in jail.
Oh, in
So I had
jail.
to do a 72-hour because I basically after my 30 WI, I had to do an outpatient treatment program, and then after that was this thing called Safe Streets, which was like a probation program. And so I did outpatient treatment, getting high every night, you know, and then I went to the probation orientation and I did all the stuff. And then at the end of it, he handed me a cup, and that was not the good. That was not a good thing to get. But yeah, so then the next day, my probation officer called me up. She was like, "Yeah, we got a problem." And I remember too, because I just went off on her. Like, there's something wrong with that test. There's no way I tested positive, you know, like, and I just started yelling at her. And I could picture her like kind of with her feet up on the desk, kind of like maybe just picking her nails, letting me just vent. Yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, there's no way, Anita. There's something, you know. But, you know, and then I got done with my rant, and she basically explained what I had to do. And they could have thrown me in jail for a year. I had a suspended sentence for a year, and she could have just invoked that and thrown me in jail. But she gave me another chance, and yeah, I actually keep contact with her today too. So
that's amazing, dude. Yeah, that's really cool. So is maybe the fear of jail a little bit, you know, plus it's honestly, dude, I like this too, because very rarely do you see court ordered shit like that work.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I don't think it was. So the Friday before, so I had to check myself into jail that Saturday morning, and the Friday before, I'm starting to feel like comedy. I do these podcasts and I'm saying the same story, but yeah, the Friday before I went out to score, and of course I couldn't, and nobody had anything. I couldn't get any cold crack, anything that night. And I proceeded to get drunk and piss off everybody I knew because I was so desperate. There's 72 hours without drugs. I need drugs tonight,
totally.
and so I just realized that I just became kind of this pathetic loser that was just this fiend that was just annoying everybody for drugs, and I couldn't find any. And I went home. I rode the bus home that night. And I was walking. It was about a half-hour walk from the bus stop to my home, and it was pouring rain. And I was walking through this neighborhood, and I was screaming at God to take me off this planet. I wanted to be dead. I wanted it to be over. I just realized what a piece of shit I had become, and yeah, I just ultimately humiliated and I guess that was my bottom of sorts. I don't know.
Dude, that's awesome.
So yeah, it wasn't. I wouldn't give credit to the penal system. Like it's. I'm not a big God person, but at the time that was kind of my thing, was just divine intervention, because it was like somebody just said he's ready and reached down from the sky and said, right now start walking that direction. So it was kind of an interesting thing, and I thought I could maintain the friendships too. I'd still go to the same bars and drink old duels and stuff, and it's like try to get people to do something other than sit in a bar getting fucked up. But no, nobody really wanted to get on board with that.
Exactly.
So
See, I love that. I love what you're saying there, that it's all about you. You were ready, whatever that is. It stinks that that's what it takes for you to have to be ready to quit, because I mean, there's a lot in me that really just wants to speed that process up for a lot of people, which is why we're doing this. But story after story after story, you just had to be ready.
that's the thing, is like I'm sure you guys have seen the movie Beautiful Boy with Steve Carell.
Oh, I've heard a lot of good things.
I actually don't think I've seen it.
It's a great movie, but his son is a meth addict, and he's trying to figure it out. He doesn't understand it. He's doing everything in his power to try to figure out how to help his son, and there's nothing he can do, because you can't help somebody. You can lock somebody up and force abstinence for a month, 2 months, 6 months, whatever, but you can't force them to all they're going to do at that point is come out and like I said earlier, white knuckle it, and just but until something clicks, until something in your brain says enough, I don't think anybody's really gonna get sober. So
yeah, I know, and that's the hard part too. And that was a question I constantly asked myself, like, maybe it was before I was realizing that addiction was a huge part of my life, but like I always felt like I was meant for something bigger than what I was doing or whatever. But dude, my addiction and all of that stuff is kind of what has brought that out.
no.
You know what I mean? And it's like I had to go through those years of addiction to be where I'm at right now.
I feel there's been so many serendipitous moments since I started this show, and I really think that I needed to go through what I went through because I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing right now.
Totally.
Love that.
Now, I can't quite figure it out, because it's like, well, I wish I could see a little bit more success right now. But it's like, but I was talking to my therapist about it, and she said, if it was easy, you wouldn't learn anything from it.
Exactly.
So,
and that's kind of what, dude, I've been teaching my kids that, right? Like life is all about the climb.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And it's, what are you going to learn during the hard parts of your life and your path, and it's like, we're all climbing a mountain, and you can either climb it and complain, or you climb it and look for, you look for the roses, you look for the moments that you're supposed to be learning something. And, eventually we get to what we think is the top of the mountain. And then, you're just going to find another mountain to climb.
Well, the problem is if you make it all about getting to the top of the mountain, you're going to be disappointed when you get there.
Oh, 100%.
And that's I tell my daughter all the time, read The Alchemist, read The Alchemist.
That's a great book. Yeah.
That's what that's all about, right? It's just, it's not the destination. And I think that's the real magic is no matter. In fact, when we talk about midlife crisis and all that stuff, a lot of guys go out and buy the Corvette convertible and the windbreaker, but it's like, I think you set all these goals, right? Like we have this prescription that we're supposed to follow for our life to be perfect. And we get married, we buy the house, we develop a career, we get the 2.5 kids and the dog and the white picket fence. And then we have all this stuff that's supposed to, show success. And then we're just feeling unfulfilled because we never tapped into what we want.
Yeah.
We did what society says we're supposed to do, but we never tapped into what we're supposed to do. And I think then we hit 45 years old and we're like, my life sucks. I've got nothing, because we got to the top of the mountain,
Right.
and now what, right?
Yeah. And that's the great thing I think about life too, right? Is like, that doesn't have to be your mountain.
Yeah.
Like you can pick what mountain you want to climb, and I think that that's being more and more prevalent, like in our generation and the next generation. It seems to be a little bit more choice in that.
Yeah, the opposite though then becomes a problem, because then it's like, well, I'm trying all the mountains simultaneously and I never go
Right.
up any mountain, so it's kind of it is a catch-22. But it's tricky. Like I tell my daughter that all the time. Like, she's so worried about, she's going to college now, and I said, well, you don't need to worry about what's going to happen in 4 years. Right now, you've got a direction. You're going in that direction, but somebody might tap you on the shoulder and say, go this way. And you'd be like, oh yeah, maybe I'll go that way. And that's what it's about. It's because if you just like ignore all the signs and keep going forward until you get to that destination, then you're going to get there and be like, well, I missed all those opportunities.
Exactly.
And now I'm here and I don't like it.
That's good. That's good info right there, man.
Yeah, it's wisdom, and that's.
Yeah, I'm pretty smart.
I mean, honestly, dude,
keep fooling us.
We're gonna get
great.
We're gonna get into the stand-up comedy thing, but like, I feel like you have to be pretty smart to do stand-up comedy.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a different. It's an art like anything else. I think you have to understand how comedy works, and then you need to put the work into it, and I think you need to have a sense of humor too. So yeah, there's
a little bit of intelligence in there.
I don't know. I'll let you know when I'm a successful comic. I'll let you know what the trick is.
I was gonna say too, I like that. Now it's like the analogy of sailing, right? Like it's tacking. If you're on a sailboat, you never sail from point A to point B. You're always, it's called tacking. You go point A to B to C to D to E to F. And you're following the wind. And in life, it's the same thing, right? You're following these opportunities and different chances and things that you have in your life.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah. So that was actually, I can't claim that one. That was one that I got in therapy.
Well, I don't sail, so.
I don't either. It just made sense to me. I was like, oh, okay. I
just put a motor on the back and go straight.
Yeah, that's what I normally do too. I was like, sailing seems a little bit too fucking hard.
Yeah. Just give me a V8 and let's get to where we want to go.
Give me two outboard 1200s and I'm going this way.
Exactly.
But so you're 30 when you got sober. Yeah. How did that change your life? Take us through that process.
Yeah. So and I'm a little bit careful with the word sober. I quit doing drugs. I was sober for a while. And then just to clarify, like I never had an issue with drinking, so I could, go out and have a beer. I pretty much quit drinking about a year ago when I started this show, just because of the hypocrisy behind that. But no, but I did quit. I mean, I was completely sober for several years after when I was 30. I think the biggest challenge was I had tens of thousands of dollars in debt, and this is something that I think everybody I know that's in recovery or helping people in recovery, I don't hear anybody talking about that. And that was overwhelming to me to just think, like, what do I do with it? I got all these creditors beating down my door, wanting money, tens of thousands of dollars. And so I had an opportunity. A friend of mine's mom, she was retired and she had kind of this finished basement, and she had smoked her whole life, so she had kind of a deep, raspy voice, and so I moved into her basement and paid her rent, and she opened up a checking account, and I would deposit my checks in that. She would give me an allowance, and I gave her all my bills. Like, I went up there with a box of papers and just dumped them out. And she started calling all these creditors and saying she was me and negotiating deals. And then she would give me an allowance to live by. And then every month or so, she'd be like, yep, we paid off another one. And so it was like this huge stress out of my life, because I didn't even have to look at my financial situation. And she just took care of it all. And I had enough money to survive. I had a place to live. And yeah, and I just think like there's a service there somehow, I think, that could help people. You know, I was fortunate to have her because I don't know how I would have tackled that mountain of debt without her.
Yeah, dude, it's so funny you say that because we're in that position right now. You know, I got clean, well, sober over a year ago. It's like about 18 months ago. But dude, we're still picking up the pieces from
Yeah.
that, you know. And that is something that I don't think that we do talk a lot about. But and I was grateful. My wife, she kind of looked at all that, put together a budget, and we've been attacking it. You know, I'm reluctant to attack it, but it's, you know, it's just not my personality.
Yeah, and with the crack too. I mean, like I had so many checks that I was kiting out there. I remember one time we went to this 24-hour Walmart and bought a VCR with a check, and then drove across town to another 24-hour Walmart and returned it to get
To
cash
get the
to
money.
buy drugs.
Yeah.
So that check just instantly went to default and went to collections. And you know, I remember times you know, having to go to a gas station that still used the old credit card readers, one that didn't, you do it electronically so that we could fill up our gas tank on a credit card that had no
money on it.
no money on it. Yeah. So I mean, it's just every credit card. I mean, like, you know, like tens of $1,000s in checks that bounced. And I don't know if you know about kiting checks, but when one bounces, it's just a domino effect. And then everything out there is going to hit collections and car repossessed, you know, yeah, everything. Wow, so
that's crazy. This gal sounds kind of like a godsend. How did you meet her?
Oh, it was a friend of mine's mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's
in
really
fact,
cool.
they were an interesting, these two brothers, they tried to help me out a couple of times. At one point they actually kidnapped me from my home. My where I was living pretty much had turned into a crack house, and they came over with a pickup truck one day and they just said, "Hey, tell us what you want because you're coming with us right now." And I grabbed just basically a few things and threw in the back of their truck. But they drank. So instead of doing coke and crack, I was just getting drunk every night. So it didn't really help, you know, with the issue. And then once I moved out of there, I just went right back to it. So
yeah.
But they tried. But yeah, it was their mom that actually.
These guys, were they guys that you'd known for a while, or?
Yeah, that's a whole.
I mean, that's a pretty cool way to step up and like.
It's a really, yeah, it's kind of a long story around that. But so basically, what happened was, my brother had bought this little corner pizza shop, and he hired me to run it for him. And they were renting a house right next door to this place, so they started coming in to get pizzas, and I got to know them that way. And then with my addiction, of course, there wasn't a lot of success in that business. And I mean, business wise, I was crushing it. Like I turned this little failing business into a really successful business and neighborhood icon. Financially, though, it wasn't quite the case because my addiction. And so at one point they both started working there, and then they actually wanted to buy it from my brother because my brother couldn't run it and I was too messed up to keep doing it. And so they ended up buying the place from them. But yeah, we just got to know each other through that process.
Cool. That's really cool. So the getting sober process for you wasn't like you had that kind of God moment where you're like, all right, I'm turning my life around. You had some help with your finances. You know, take us through the rest of that. Like, how did you end up back on your feet?
Yeah, so I lived in that basement. I actually and then I was then working for that pizza place again
Wow,
for
really?
those brothers, yeah. And they actually were next to a video rental store. Remember when you used to go to
Oh yeah,
like buildings and
Blockbuster,
back in the day when DVDs existed. But yeah, and so we would trade pizzas for DVD rentals,
Nice.
and so I just became addicted. My friend had this projector, you know, it was like had like an 8-foot screen projected on my wall, and I had a good stereo and stuff. So I would watch 2 or 3 movies a night, and I just became addicted to movies. Yeah. So I just work and go home and stare at a
screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And get free rentals as much as I wanted, and I was just watching tons of movies.
What's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie?
And I know that's a really what's the one that comes to the top of your head?
I struggle with favorites, but one of my favorites is a Man on Fire with Denzel Washington.
Okay, that's a good one.
I really love that. But yeah, there's so many good movies, but yeah, so there was that to kind of consume me there, and the internet, just trying to develop some sort of contact with humanity.
Yeah.
Which is how I met my wife, was through some website somewhere. She was in Argentina and got chatting to her. So yeah.
Nice. And are you guys still together?
No, we're
Separated.
not together anymore. Yeah.
But you got 2 daughters out of that situation.
Yeah.
How old are your daughters?
16 and 18.
Nice, man. That's awesome. How are they doing today?
Oh, they're great. They've come to several of my shows, and my oldest is in college. She just finished her first year of college. My youngest will be a senior next year. So, no, they were both my oldest was in color guard, and my youngest was in marching band. So they were both
awesome,
kind of band kids, which is, I think, a pretty good group. Of all the groups in high school for your kids to get into, marching band's a pretty solid one.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They learn a lot of discipline, and it's a lot of camaraderie. It's a good little group. It's not like, I guess it's better than the rockers or the stoners.
Yeah, right. Like the groups that we hung out with.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, dude, tell us about the comedy show, Second Chance Comedy. How did this all come about?
Yeah, so it was about, it was August of 2023. I was somebody convinced me to take a comedy class, and stand up is something, I don't know, people told me my whole life, you should do stand up comedy. Like, yeah, whatever. It's kind of never thought I would do it. But somebody convinced me to take the stand up comedy class down at Rise Comedy downtown. And at the end of that, I had to showcase. You go through 6 weeks, and then you have a show that all the students are on. And it was a lot of fun. And I just decided to keep doing it. And I made a goal for myself that I was going to be on stage 100 times before I decided if I was going to keep doing it or not. And our first Second Chance show was actually my 100th time on stage.
Seriously?
Well, in full honesty, I went to an extra open mic that week just to be my 100th.
Sure. Oh, you have to. That's smart.
But yeah, so then I along the way somewhere, I started just doing some dumb jokes about my past crack addiction, not thinking anything of it. And I started getting booked on some brewery shows and stuff. And people would come up to me afterwards, and they'd start telling me about their journey with addiction, and how relatable my content was, or that they used to smoke crack too. And I don't know, just after that happened so many times and so many conversations, there was just kind of this light bulb moment of like, yeah, I should do a show. In fact, I got to bring this up because a friend of mine, one of the first open mic I went to, there was this couple, boyfriend, girlfriend, and he was a comic, she wasn't. And my first open mic was horrible. Like I was just not a public speaker. I was like reading my phone with my head down, like it was so bad. But they came up to me afterwards and like, yeah, you had some really good jokes in there. And anyway, then when I started with the crack jokes, at one point, the girlfriend, she told me, she goes, you should think about doing like a sober show. And I'm like, that's a dumb idea. And there's not enough sober people that go to comedy shows, And so then when I started this show, and I had done several of these shows, and I ran into him at an open mic, and I was like, please tell Gail, I do recognize that this was her idea, and that I shot it down. So, but anyway, yeah. But it was just this light bulb moment, and I talked to a couple other people, and then booked the Louisville Underground, and found some comedians to be on the show.
And so are all of your comedians like sober?
They're not all sober. They're really, what I'm looking for is people that have a connection with addiction and experience with addiction. So when I was first looking for comedians, it was really hard to find anybody. And there was this woman that I took the class with, and I knew that her brothers had issues with meth. And so she grew up around that. And so I asked her, I said, do you want to write about it from that perspective? And she's been on almost every show. She's incredible. And but she talks about what it was like growing up around addiction. So she wasn't an addict herself, but she gives that perspective. And she even had somebody come up to her after one of the shows and say, I never even thought about how much I impacted my family until I heard your set. And so, I think it's got a profound impact on the audience, her story.
I was going to ask too, like, are you guys getting a lot of opportunities? Like, are you still getting a lot of people that come up to you after shows and talk to you about that kind of stuff?
We do get a few. It does feel like something and this is I'm trying to figure out, like it, and I don't know if this is all in my head or what, but it kind of feels like the buzz faded, like, like that first hit of crack, right? Like it feels amazing, but then after a while, that first hit isn't such a big deal. And I think it's kind of like we're reaching that plateau of like, okay, we're here, we've got this high, but it doesn't feel high anymore. So it does happen though, for sure. And I'm always meeting people. Like it's crazy to me. Like I didn't even realize this recovery community existed until I started doing this show.
Right.
And it's insane. There's just like thousands and thousands of people that are like living in the shadows in this recovery community and didn't even know they existed. And that's part of what I want this show to do, is to bridge that gap between people that aren't in recovery and people that are in recovery.
I think people want more of that connection, because you have the, with your hanging out with your buddies and all that, you kind of have that camaraderie, and you lose some of that of we're doing the same thing. It's definitely not a misery loves company thing. It's quite the opposite. And when I wear this hat, I mean, I probably get one or two people stopping me a week. I'm just, hey, love the hat. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with our podcast when it first came out. So we're kind of in that same boat too. The viewership, the analytics and all those things are plateauing right now, but that's when we kick into high gear and keep pushing.
Yep.
Because it's going to work,
dude. And there's this, I'm going to leave this with you, because this is something somebody told me, and it's helped me a lot throughout my life. My adult life, but it's don't quit before the magic happens. And it's like, if you're learning how to do anything, play the guitar, that's the example he uses. It's like, there's this thing in our brains that's like, we're learning, we get stuck, and we keep going, we're stuck, and you get frustrated, right? And then you quit because you're like, oh, I'm not progressing, I'm this, but you're right at that threshold of taking that next step.
Yeah.
Well, how bad do you really want it?
Yeah.
At that point, that's when you have to say, how bad do I want this?
Yep.
And of course you want it, so you don't quit.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's something that there's a book called the War of Art. I don't know if you've read that, but or no, it's actually, I can't remember if it's that or the Icarus Deception. One of those two books where I was reading about this, where I think it's the War of Art, where he talks about like you're gonna find these whenever you're pursuing something like this, you're going to find these moments of resistance.
Yeah.
It might be some financial downfall that you weren't expecting. You think, okay, I can't keep going because I don't have money to do this and my whole life has fell apart, so I'll give up my project. And it's like those could be family telling you that it's never going to work or whatever it might be. And those pushing through those moments of resistance are where, like what you said, the magic is on the other side of that. And it is. I mean, it's happened to me. I can't tell you how many times that I've sat there thinking, why am I even doing this? And then some weird little serendipitous thing will happen. And it'll be like, that was too weird of a coincidence. And, but to your point, yeah, like it is amazing. Like when we open up the doors, even when the last time we were at the Rialto, I was up there and I was standing out in front of the place, like handing out flyers to people. And this couple came up to me like, oh no, we know lots of people in recovery. And we had this great conversation that never would have happened if it wasn't for this show.
Dude, and that's what, like, I have to remind myself, like, that's what it's all about, because my egocentric mind, all of that stuff, like my humanness gets in the way of like, oh, I'm the one doing all of this stuff, right? When really it's, in my belief system, it's not me. It's God empowering me to do these things,
You've got an ego that gets in the way. I don't have that problem.
Oh, you don't?
I'm just so humble.
Then we need to sit down. Dude, I literally asked one of my mentors the other day, like, I don't know if I actually know how to be humble, And it was like, something I've always considered myself as being, but the more I look at like my output and like how I believe in like certain things that I think, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't think I'm actually a very humble person.
I don't know that I would say that. I mean, I think the conversations I've had with you come off with a level of humility. I mean, you're not coming off with arrogance. You have some confidence and you are outspoken, but I wouldn't say that you're
I appreciate that.
Not humble. I mean,
yeah, I appreciate that.
I think people that aren't humble are not approachable. Like it's hard to have real conversations with people that don't have any humility. And like from day one, I found both of you just very easy to talk to. And so
maybe it's because we're all super arrogant. Just kidding.
For yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna. He's like, nah, dude, not me.
Just sit back and watch you guys playing yourselves right now.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So I was going to say, what we're second chance comedy.
Just pushing through the resistance and fighting
Oh,
through
right.
it.
Yeah. Dude, and that's so, I'm glad you brought that up because that's literally where I'm at mentally right now today with this podcast,
Oh.
And with our group that we're started and in real estate and things like that. It's just like, it's kind of defeating. You know what I mean? You put so much effort and so much of yourself into these things. And then, and then you expect like you said at the beginning, it's this fire, like people are like, oh, that's cool. That's a great idea. And you get a lot of positive feedback, and then it kind of stops,
Yeah.
Well,
and
no one's going to believe in what you're doing, your passion project, more than you.
right.
So we have to look back at, okay, how much effort have we put in? What are we doing on a week-to-week basis? Are we going through the motions? And then assess.
Right.
Never blame anybody for anything,
Right.
ever.
Mm.
Your story about when the PO popped you on the cocaine, right?
Yeah.
The addicts in us, the people who aren't ready, they're just going to blame everybody except for themselves, right? So now we're in a position of control, and now we're clear-headed. And I'm not calling anybody out here.
No. This is
thinking,
good.
like, this is where you assess, what am I doing? 100%. Never blame anybody. What is the effort that you're putting in, and adjust. And I think it's a great little tweak that we did, because there was times where I'm like, okay, I'm literally just doing this to get it done, compared to what it was in the very beginning.
Right.
You remind me of, and this one is from the Icarus Deception, which is another good book if you're looking for something to read. But he says in there, he says, accept applause, but don't expect applause.
Yeah.
And he goes on to talk about that. He said, if we go out there and we're trying to get applause, we're like chasing that applause, then we're changing what we're doing
Right.
for the result, versus allowing ourselves to be what we're supposed to be and then taking whatever result we get. And so what people do, and you see this a lot on social media, it's like people are using AI to generate all their content, and sure, they're getting this following, but it's all superficial. But if you go out there and you just say, this is the message I want to give, this is the jokes that I want to deliver, and I don't care if people laugh or not, that's when my authenticity is going to come out. And that, if I am getting an applause from that, that's real. If I'm just like having somebody else write jokes for me and I go out there and deliver the jokes and people laugh and blah, 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 yeah, people think I'm funny, then I'm going to go home feeling empty and I'm not going to evolve. And so I think it's really about staying on brand with like who you are. Why did you start this? Why did you start this podcast? Now, if you start looking at, look at any business that talks about exit strategy, as soon as they start talking about exit strategy,
It's game over.
yeah, the business, everything about it starts going to shit, because they're no longer focused on building a great product, building a great client base, building a great company. Now they're just focused on how can we manipulate everything to get as much revenue as possible. And that's the same thing we're going to do here with this podcast or anything. If you approach this like, how can I get the most subscribers? And that's all I care about is subscribers, you're going to completely forget about why you started this in the first place.
Dude,
and
and
it's
that's-
going to be pointless.
That's actually extremely helpful just for me, for where I'm at in my mindset right now.
Desperation is a stinky cologne, man.
See, and that's the thing, is I wouldn't say that I'm desperate, but I feel the stagnant. Like I feel this thing getting stagnant a little bit. And so I'm like, I a little bit, right? Like I think that it's time for us to step it up a little bit and try to go to the next level.
Well, think about sales, right? Like, if all these leads start falling off back and forth, and then you're like, come on, just buy the freaking house or do the application, they're going to pick up on that and be like, damn, you broke?
Yeah.
Like, that's what they think. And, I've recently had a deal fall through, and a lot of circumstances, but the reaction I got from the other side was a realtor that wasn't doing much business. And so it's like they are so desperate for things to happen that they're just going to lash out and reach out.
And it causes you to make poor decisions. You know, like it creates stress and anxiety in your life, right? And when you're overly emotional, you're not thinking clearly. It's the right brain, left brain kind of thing. And so, if you're overly emotional, this is something I've been working on myself and trying to encourage my wife, is like, dude, like we need to do a better job of managing our emotions. And that's not saying don't be or feel this certain way. Like you can definitely feel a certain way. I'm just saying don't act on it. Like don't let that be the reason that you're making this decision.
That's our 9-year-old in a nutshell right now, man.
Yeah.
Naya went and interviewed for this new position, and my wife is a teacher at my son's school, and then his immediate reaction was, I can't do this now, and this and this and this, and like, how's my whole world going to change?
Yeah.
And it's so hard. I'm not saying we're acting like toddler or a 9-year-old.
Kind of, though. I mean,
well, it's a human emotion. Like, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? If you can just have that where you just stop and don't talk for 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, it's a good start. So we're overreacting on, oh my God, our numbers are down. Oh my gosh, we don't have these subscribers. Stop and take that pause, reassess, and go dominate.
On that note, guys,
Life's easier when you know that everybody knows.
that is true. That's,
Well, the shame of hiding things, I think, often fuels the addiction or whatever it is too.
Yeah.
That's the problem is I think oftentimes when we do something in secret, that almost fuels the attraction to it.
totally.
Oh my
You know what?
God,
And let's
so damn true.
unpack that for a minute. Like, that's a nugget of gold, dude. Why? What do you think it is?
You know, I don't know. I think shame is a powerful thing, though. I mean, even if you look at like things related to like sexuality and stuff, and how much of that is fueled by shame, like pornography and stuff. I think we have I think sex is a really good example of that. There's so much shame around sexual desire that we don't allow our thoughts to come out. And so they kind of fester inside of us and turn into something uglier. I think that's a lot of like porn addiction is probably from people that are, oppressed sexually, or have desires that they're not willing to admit. And so I don't want to get.
No, dude, that's really interesting because I think you're probably, none of us are psychologists or anything like that, but I would say that's pretty close.
I don't want to. I know you're strong in your faith, and I used to be a very devout Christian. But I think Christianity actually fuels a lot of that. Like I think that's where, like, there's so much in religion that tells you normal human desire is bad, and so then we have those normal human desire thoughts and we think, oh, I'm not supposed to have these thoughts. This is evil. And so it's like that forcing ourselves to believe that it's wrong to have these desires, I think just buries these feelings down inside and doesn't give them a place to escape. And then they fester and turn into something uglier, whether it's a porn addiction or.
And I think a lot of that goes back to communication, and a healthy form of communication. Because if I look at religion, I would say I don't think God wants us to not feel those things. You know what I mean? Like he put them in us for a reason. But I think what we do with them as human beings is where the problems lie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's like a guideline within the Christian faith of like, hey, if you want to live a good and healthy life, big if, this is the way that you should do it. And it's more of like a rule book or a guidebook. At least that's, that's because, dude, how else are you supposed to, I mean, we all have these carnal desires, right? Like, where does that come from?
I mean, how much? I mean, so let's unpack that. Like, I mean, if we keep looking at sexuality, for example, like all of the things that are forbidden sexually are forbidden from religion, from rules that people put around it. And I mean, I think back, I used to work in restaurants, and occasionally we'd have like a cooler that would go out, and be full of food. And so somebody put a sign on the door saying, "Do not open." Every fucking person that walked past that opened the door. It's like when you say you can't do this, don't do that, like it just makes you want to do it. Like that's where, I mean, you talk about like Adam and Eve and
I was going to say, I mean, you're literally describing the very first story in the Bible.
And so it's like, I think if we say, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to trash on any religion or anything, but I think like what happens is people then interpret or create some sort of religion, and they say, well, you can't do this. Oral sex is wrong. That's a sin. What? Who
I mean,
decided that,
yeah,
right?
right,
Like
exactly.
that's not in the Bible. It's just something that, some pastor of some church decided that was a rule. And so now it's like, well, you can't have these thoughts. If you fantasize about sex, you're evil, and God doesn't want you to do that. It's like, oh, I'm not, this thought's bad. And it's like, oh, but I'm having that thought. It's like, it just perpetuates the thing that you're, I mean, what's wrong with sexual desire? What's wrong with fantasy?
See, and that's
Like, even if you don't fulfill it, I think there's something freeing and saying, hey, I have this sexual fantasy, even if it's never going to be fulfilled. Being able to talk about it without shame is going to release that. But if I have these sexual thoughts and I keep them inside and I'm not free to talk about that, then they turn into something ugly.
See, and that's, you're leading right into my point, which is, dude, religion is weaponized.
Yep.
Constantly. You know what I mean? And it's like, if you want the actual facts, go read the Bible for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and interpret it and get a study, because that's where it's like, I think that if you look at the Old Testament is all rules, but there were ways for the Israelites, for the Jewish people, to be connected to God. That was it. Like, everybody else in there was either, pagan or whatever, like multiple gods. But the Old Testament is written from the perspective of God to his people, which is the Jewish people. So that's where a lot of the practices in the Jewish faith are physical manifestations of, or representations of, a certain way to connect with God, right? Or a way that they need to be living their life, because it's the way that it's what's going to lead them to success, to happiness, to be able to fill their cup, so therefore they can overflow and fill other people's cups. A lot of the faith is that. And then you get to the New Testament where you read about Jesus, and it's more like, hey, now your calling is not to live by this rule anymore, but to go share the word of God and go share the gospel with other people. Like,
Sure.
Jesus did come to this earth. And I feel like that's one of the things that we're trying to do in this podcast is like, what did Jesus tell his disciples when he left the earth? He said, now it is you have the power to go out and to find these people that have never heard my name and to preach my name to them. It's to go into the areas that people don't even know who Jesus is. And so those are that's what I take from the Bible. And yes, I think that you are 100% correct in the sense that human beings are always going to screw that up. They're going to weaponize it there. And it's been happening for years and years and years and years and years.
Well, I guess, I mean, and I don't know how much down this rabbit hole you want to go, but
Yeah.
let's take the, I mean, like you just, I assume that your faith is probably found like some sort of evangelical or non-denominational church. And there's probably a people that say, well, we're not religious. We just follow the Bible. Right. And we just interpret the Bible as it's written. But there's a million different churches with a million different interpretations that all claim they're doing the same thing.
Right.
So when you say, well, it's about interpreting the Bible as it's written, that's how can you do that? How can you say that you're the right one? Like there's all these different churches, and it's like, I mean, I got into this when I was really deep into my faith.
Think about this, dude. Why do you think it is? Why do you think that's the case?
Well, because it's always about the people.
Exactly.
Yeah, but every church out there. So this is what I got into a lot. Is a lot of times people would be like, well, it's, where do you draw the line? I guess because it's like, okay, we in this church, we teach the Bible. We believe the Bible is truth, and we teach the Bible is true. It's like, well, what about that church across the street? Well, they're pretty close. There's a couple of things we don't agree with, but for the most part, they're good enough. Well, what about that church down the road with the transgender pastors? Like, oh, well, no, they've crossed the line. It's like, but they're reading the same book. They're interpreting it based on their beliefs. It's like, so when you really think about it, nobody is interpreting the Bible correctly, or we all are, and there is no correct interpretation of it. And that's where I think I guess I just found so much where it's like the church that I belong to was so we are right and everybody else is wrong. And it's like, okay, there's a million different churches in the world, but us 12 people that meet in this person's basement every Sunday, we're the only ones that figured out the correct interpretation of the Bible. Like that's where I think it gets.
And I agree with you. And I honestly think the Bible can be interpreted in a billion different ways because there's billions of people on the planet.
Yeah.
And I think that as long as we're tapped into, our Creator and listening for the voice of God in our lives, and I think that's a very hard thing to do and to discern. But dude, I really don't feel like, I think that it is interpreted a lot of different ways because people are so unique and people are so different. And it's a guideline for humankind, for humans, and what I disagree with is what's going on there, right? That's why I struggle to engage in church, because of the human part of it, and we are going down a major rabbit hole, but
we can go down this rabbit hole.
I love these conversations though, dude, because it's something that I personally struggled with for a long time. I grew up in church, dude. I remember being 12, 13, 14 years old and being like, what he just said doesn't line up with what he just did last weekend.
Yeah.
And seeing that very early on. And so in all of that, dude, like I had to learn how to have grace for the people that I meet in church, because I have a massively high expectation of people that I meet at church.
No.
And it's probably not fair, right?
Would you consider yourself open-minded?
I would say the older I get, the less open-minded I'm getting.
Okay.
I think that that's the honest truth. I feel like I'm really developing what I believe after becoming sober. I really feel like I'm developing what I believe, my belief system and things like that. So I think I'm becoming less open-minded to things, but I'm always willing to accept other people's viewpoints.
Oh.
And not accept them in the sense of like, I'm going to apply this to my life, but it's not going to change the way that I think about you. It's not going to change. Like if you're not a Christian, I don't care.
No.
Like I think you're an amazing human being. I think that what you're plugging into the world with your comedy show and all of that kind of stuff is incredible. And I'll do anything I can to support that.
Oh.
So in that sense, yeah, but it's also not my place to judge people.
Well, and that's where I'm coming from too. Like, I mean, I've got my perspective on this. I was a very devout Christian for 12 years. I'm talking church twice a week, Bible studies at least once a week, reading my Bible for an hour every morning. I would go to church. I would take copious notes on the sermons. Like this was my life. And so it's interesting to me. Like I run into a lot of people that I just I was never truly saved, or I was never truly believed. And it's like, I just don't have the same perspective. And I remember, my life blew up a few years back. And I remember that was my biggest struggle was this isn't reality, but to me, it was like I was holding on to my faith and staring into an abyss. And if I let go of this, I fall into the abyss. And letting go of that was so liberating, because now I can be open-minded. Now I can hear your perspective. I can hear Aaron's perspective. I can hear anybody's perspective, and I can just listen without judgment. But when I was a Christian, it was like, well, they're wrong. They're wrong because I've got truth and I'm holding on to this, and I know everybody else is wrong.
That's a scary, I agree with you, man. That's a scary place to be. And I think as soon as you get there as a human being, then you need to check yourself, because dude, that church, there's sin that you went to, there's sin inside that church.
There's sin inside every church.
Exactly. That's my point. And my point is if you're not willing to admit it, then how are you ever going to defeat it? You know what I mean? And that's just it is this mindset, this sin, this whatever, and again, dude, it's why I struggle with church. The only reason that my wife and I go to church is to get a different interpretation of God's word.
Huh?
That's the only reason, and we don't go very often. And, it's like, I don't feel convicted about that. I feel like that my relationship with Christ is a relationship with you, like it is with you, like it is with Aaron. It's something I tap into on a daily basis. I pray over my kids because it puts me in the right mindset.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's real. I think I've said this in a past episode. This was my senior quote in high school. I'd rather live my life like there is a God and die and find out that there isn't than to live my life like there isn't a God and die and find out that there is.
No.
And really, if you think about religion, spirituality, it's Christianity, all of it is put in place so that we can live the best version of ourselves. That's it. And it's not about controlling you. It's not about controlling you or this person or, as soon as you start to do that, you're weaponizing what a gift that God gave each one of us as an individual, not as a group, but as an individual. And it does say where two or more people are gathered, I am there, but you have to find the same minded people, and I feel like, especially in today's day and age, man, with everything being accepted and woke and all of that stuff, there's so many different perspectives on all of this. But dude, at the end of the day, Jesus gave us one calling, and that was to go find the people that needed him and to preach the gospel.
What if Jesus didn't give you a calling at all? What if Jesus was just a really wise man?
Then
you know what I mean? Yeah. I think that's the thing is.
But why live there?
Well, but I don't think so. So I don't think there's anything like, to your point, like your belief is your belief. I think where it becomes problematic is when you start trying to say that other people are wrong. Exactly. I think and I've always thought this way. It's if I'm hanging off a cliff by my fingertips and I'm slipping and I can't pull myself up, and out of desperation, I call out to God, and somehow I get the strength to pull myself up onto that ledge and save my life. Did God save me, or did my belief in God save me? And does it make a difference?
That's why we're called believers, not knowers.
And I don't think it makes a difference.
So it doesn't make a difference.
It's how you apply it to your life.
So am I going to hell because I'm not a Christian?
No.
You know what I mean? Like, is there a heaven and hell?
And this is the question that I think we all need to ask ourselves: is what causes me to live my best life? What puts me in a place of service, of pouring myself into other people, of, grace, love? What puts you in that place? Dude, if it's paganism, then who the fuck am I to say that you're wrong? I'm just one of 7 billion people that are running around on this planet trying to figure it out too. But what I do know is that my belief system and my sobriety causes me to be a better father, to be more connected to my wife, to challenge myself in areas of my life that I didn't think was possible, and so why would I give that up?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And it's working for you.
And exactly. And so but instead of coming here and being like, yeah, you are going to hell because you're not a Christian. That's bullshit, because nobody fucking knows that.
Right.
For sure. Nobody knows that. And you can't sit there and tell me that for a fact. I know one person that has died and came back to life. One person.
Do you?
Yes.
Or you just know a story about a person?
Oh, I know her personally, dude. I grew up.
I thought you were referencing Jesus.
Jesus, man.
Well, and she has claimed that she died. She was legally dead for I want to say 7 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
So she's got a crazy story. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, you talk about like whatever voices in your head, or even like, my daughter was just asking me about this the other day. Like we were talking about how there was all these, God put words into people's mouths and they wrote the Bible and all this stuff. It's like, but how come God doesn't speak to people today? Maybe God speaks to people all the time. Maybe God never speaks to people, maybe these are just the voices in our head. And back then it was like a bunch of crazy people wrote some shit down and we called it God's word. Like, we don't know. We don't know anything.
My honest belief system is that we're all actually serving the same God. We actually just somehow over time twisted everything into these 9,000 different religions.
Maybe we're not serving a God at all. Maybe we are part of a God. Maybe we're all part of this energy that makes up everything. And that's, who knows? We want to get into a philosophical debate. This podcast is going to be, there's going to be a lot of complaints.
4.5 hours.
4.5 weeks.
I just talked to a guy that thinks that we live inside of a snow globe.
Yeah. Well, there's the flat earthers that think there's, and that's funny too. Like they always talk about the firmament. Google definition of firmament. There isn't even like a solid definition of that word. And yet, and it's crazy to me. Like they believe that God just put some like giant glass dome over us. And I mean, hope
Dude,
you
and
guys aren't flat earthers, are you? I didn't like venture into a whole another.
No,
I might
if you
just
did, whatever.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can make fun of me, dude. See, and that's the thing. It's like, as soon as I stop trying to force my perspectives on you and focus on myself, and how can I apply my belief system to my own life? And dude, it goes into the theory of, this is something I wanted to bring up earlier. Have you guys heard of the let them mindset?
there's a book by Mel Robbins.
Mel
isn't
Robbins,
there? Yeah.
yes, dude, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And basically, what it is let people be who they are. Let them be. Let your dad be who he is. You know, you may not have got the childhood that you wanted, but you know what? They're just working with inside of their parameters with their experiences, and they're human. Let them. Let them. You know, let people believe what they want. Let them weaponize God. Let them do all of these things. Dude, real quick, will you grab that white brick cord? It should be plugged in, the big brick. Just grab the end of it. This. It's stuck in a hole. God damn it. My computer's about to die. This whole thing goes bye-bye. This is going to be a fun one to edit.
What do you want with?
Here, let's take that. Just plug it in. Sorry. So, yeah, talking about the Mel Robbins, like, and it's this mindset, right? Of let people be who they are.
No?
Let them be. And the only thing in this world that we have control over is us, period. You can't control anybody else. And this is something that is super difficult for me to swallow, right? Because I'm a controlling person. I actually believe that I can change the entire culture in our country around drinking. I actually believe that, right? So it's hard for me to be like, how am I supposed to let 600 million people be who they are? You know, they're always going to, so it's freeing, and it lets you tap into the most authentic version of yourself.
So I'm going to tell you something, Mitch. You can't change other people. What you can do is you can share your authentic self.
Exactly.
And if people are influenced by that, that's great. But this goes back to what we were saying about you do what you're doing for the reason you're doing it, for yourself. And hopefully that resonates with the world and changes things.
Right.
You know, but if you're doing it for the goal of changing things, you're going to fail.
Yep. And I agree with you. And so that's where it's like, with this mindset, right? With this stuff, I'm having to reprogram what's going on upstairs, right? And look at the world in a different way of like, okay, at the end of the day, this podcast is keeping me sober.
Yeah.
That's huge, you know, and it's keeping Aaron sober. You know, it's one thing that's working in her life. So why not just keep doing that, you know?
Yeah.
And
For the record, I want to be sober because I'm done drinking. It's that easy.
And
Do you really want to stay sober? Then just stop drinking. Period.
It's that's an interesting thing about addiction is and now let's bring this back into topic.
Yeah,
Sorry, I wasn't cutting you off, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but
no, you're good, dude.
Mindset's huge.
But it is fascinating. Like even cigarettes, right? Like you have to go to the store, you have to buy a pack of cigarettes, you have to pack them and open that pack of cigarettes. You have to take one of those out. You have to put it in your mouth. You have to light that cigarette and you have to inhale. There's a series of steps that you have to do. You can stop any one of those and you won't smoke again. But our addiction, so you take that with drugs. I mean, the gymnastics that I would go through, the creativity that I would do, the risks that I would take to get high, when I could have just gone home and gone to bed and woken up feeling good the next day. But I had to do that. Addiction is such a crazy thing that it doesn't even make sense. And from a logical perspective, that's where people that aren't caught up in addiction are so judgmental. They're like, oh, he's just an idiot. All he does is drugs. It's like, nobody chooses that. Nobody decides they want to fuck up their whole life for drugs.
Right.
Like
it's funny you say that because I would intentionally not order basil or onions or something so that I could go to, oh, we ran out of basil, or they didn't deliver our basil. And so then, because I was a chef,
Gotcha.
and so then I could go to King Supers, which there's a liquor store right next
Yeah,
door.
there you
And so
go.
and I would like literally plan it
Yeah.
like days ahead, dude. When I'm doing
Well,
that order.
yeah, dude. All of a
It's
sudden,
so stupid.
Yeah, my wife's like, man, he really likes going to the grocery store. This is so helpful. And then I'm fucking wasted by the time I come back.
Oh, I will tell you, I did this, and I've shared this story before, but it's I worked at this country club, and the owner of the food service part of this country club, he and I don't know why he took a liking to me, but there was one day I was drinking in the bar at the country club, and I knew the accountant was working late, and I knew that he wasn't there. And so I go into the office. This was all a plan. I go into the office. I start talking to the accountant. I'm like, "Oh, hey, is Glenn around?" She's like, "No, he's not here today." I'm like, "Oh, that's too bad. What are you doing here so late?" Like, this whole thing was pre-planned so that I could have a casual conversation to eventually find out what day she brings the deposits to the bank, so I could see if I could go back out to the bar and cash a check and have enough time to put money in the. And I found out checks go in on Monday. I get paid on Friday. I can cash a check, and everything will be fine. And so, yeah, it's just, and that's just one of a million stories like that. Like, just all the manipulation and all the things that you would do just to satisfy that addiction when you could have just gone home and gone to bed.
And now we're sober, trying to help our kids with like elementary math. They're like, oh, I'm so stupid.
Yeah,
But
Probably shouldn't have done so much cocaine in high school.
What's funny is so my ex-wife is from Argentina, and with long division. So not only are we both trying to navigate this whole the new way that they're doing division and stuff, but they actually flip the, how like you put the big
outside,
number, and then you put the thing over there. They actually put the big number on the outside, and so like they flip that around. So it was like, we're both trying to help my daughter, and she hasn't seen either version of this, and so it's like,
she's looking at you guys like, I think I'm just going to talk to my teacher.
Yeah, exactly.
I take a 0 on this.
Ironically, both my kids are really good at math. So,
dude, I love the topic that we ended up landing on in this, and it's, just that like expectation, that we have of the world, and I like, it's so, I told this to my wife the other day. This is probably one of the most honest things I've ever said to her, but I was like, I'm at this place where I'm doing all of these things and I'm changing my life, in these crazy ways. And so it's like, because I'm doing that, my expectation of the world around me is that they also do that. And I was like, that's crazy.
No.
Like, that's a crazy expectation. It's my expectation of my kids. Like, there's no room for failure inside of any of that.
Oh.
And so it's just like, and it's pissing me off, right? When the results don't happen, I get angry, and now it's like, I'm in this deal with my dad where I popped off and said some shit that I probably shouldn't have, even though it was partially true, it's still, the way I delivered that message was wrong, and my expectation of my dad is, because I'm changing my life and I'm doing all of these things, it's like, oh, this is possible. Now it's your turn.
No.
And it's this terrible mindset that I've got around these, and it's impossible for people to live around me if that's the expectation that I have of them.
Well, I think, most relationships, what it comes down to is, like, if you do something that pisses me off or hurts my feelings, it's like, you better not ever do that again, Mitch. Fuck you. You did this. It hurt. Instead of me saying, why did that affect me like that?
Right.
Like, that's the real magic, is like, Mitch said that thing, and it's like, why did that make me so feel this emotion? And then it's like, and I can come to you and I can say, hey, Mitch, this isn't on you, but when you said that, it triggered this thing in me. And then this is the second part that needs to happen, because a lot of times people be like, well, that's your freaking problem. You need to deal with it. But if you can turn around and say, cool, thanks for sharing it with me. How can I support you? And
honestly, that like, just the feeling that I got in that moment, right, is like, I just kind of want to give you a hug.
Yeah.
And be like, dude, I'm sorry you feel that way. Not one time did you point your finger at me. Not one time did you say, this is your fault, right? What you're doing is you're saying, gosh, that made me feel this certain way. And all of your focus is right here.
And that's what we can change.
Dude, and this is one thing that Mel Robbins said that I was like, damn. She said, most people have not done the work in their own life to offer you the thing that you want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Most people have not actually gone. So if they can't answer those questions in their life, they're incapable of answering them in your life.
Well, that's the rub, right? Because we don't even know ourselves.
Exactly.
But yet we pretend like we know some. Oh, I know how he thinks. You don't even know how you think.
Exactly.
Like, how can you know how they
Yeah.
think?
Dude, and that's what all of this is, right? That's what sobriety is taking this victim mentality and turning it back around and being like, okay, instead of being a victim, I'm going to actually look at all the shit that I fucked up. And that's why I liked rehab. For me, it was this pane of glass, right? I was able to break it and be like, I don't want any of these pieces, but I want these pieces. This is who I want to be, you know? And yeah. So,
but I think that's the problem with the political structure. Everything
100%.
that's going on is like, it's like everybody wants to change everybody else. Like if everybody could just do the way I think it should be done, then everything would be perfect. And that's the most ridiculous thought.
Right.
And it's like left and right. Like I watch this stuff on Facebook. Now I don't get into politics. I just
I love
yeah,
it.
that's a whole nother conversation. But it I watch this stuff on Facebook and it's just insane. It's like both sides are lying constantly, and nobody can even see that because they're so focused on being right and looking at data that supports what they want to believe. And if people could just stop and just think that seems a little ridiculous, I'm going to research. Oh, that is a lie. Like I don't know. It is just it's all about manipulating other people instead of just being like, how can I feel better? How can I don't even know what I'm trying to say here right now.
Dude, and this brings up do you guys know who Damon West is?
No.
So he's a very well-known public speaker, you know, self-help kind of guy.
Well, not that well known.
Well, dude, his story's crazy because he got busted for breaking into people's houses and got sentenced to like 20 some years in prison.
Okay.
So it gets to, you know, federal prison, whatever, meets this guy, and he's like, dude, prison is like a tub of hot water. So he's like, you can be one of three things. You can be a carrot, you can be an egg, or you can be a coffee bean. A carrot gets soft in hot water, an egg gets hard in hot water, but a coffee bean completely changes its environment. Right? So think about that. It turns water into coffee. So how do you change your environment? You look at yourself.
Oh.
You know, how am I going to plug into, in his situation, the prison system? Dude, he got his ass whooped by every gang in that prison for months so that he didn't have to click up. You know, like he was like, I'm going to look at myself. I'm going to find the grit in me to go through the things that I need to go through to change my environment. You know, and so it's just like, whoa, damn. You know, like I love that mindset. And I think that that's kind of what we're talking about, right? Like that's where this podcast came from, you know, and I have this quote on my computer that I look at all the time that says, it's not your job to save them. It's your job to live your life as an example and show them how you saved yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and lead the horse to water, but it's not your
So are we talking about religion or sobriety?
I think all of it, man. I think they're synonymous in my mind. You know, I think they're very close. Like it takes an insane level of personal accountability, you know, to do either one of them correctly.
Well, I think it's, you know, you were talking earlier, you reminded me of something. I think you said something, Aaron, but I was just thinking about that whole, like we talk about, I'm sure you've heard the Buddhist story about the farmer with the son, where his son, basically he has a horse that runs away and then the horse comes back with another horse. And it's like every situation, though, it's like, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. And I think that going back to like trying to change everything, we don't like even whether you're pro-Trump or anti-Trump, whichever the case may be, nobody can say that Trump being president is a good or a bad thing for the future, right? Like even if the current president, whoever it is, destroys everything, maybe that's the step that needs to have so things can be better in the future. And yet everybody looks at like what's in front of me right now and what's going on and thinking that if I can just change this, everything will be fine. And that's the biggest misconception of it all. You know, it's we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, like civil war had to happen before we had the society that we had today. But
You know, do you
nobody
guys
would
know,
have been.
do you know much about Harry Potter?
No,
Okay.
enough to know that I don't watch it. But
It's the same thing, dude. This basically the professor raised him just so that he can die,
oh,
but
okay,
he has to die to defeat the bad guy.
yeah, and
So
I
it,
think,
it looks all fucked up. Like, really, you're raising this kid just for him to die? Yeah, it's part of the plan.
but I think that's and let's go back to religion and Christianity. I mean, like that is Jesus, right? Like, but is that a story to explain things? Is that
It's
is that an example,
it's a
or is that
metaphor.
yeah?
It's a metaphor for how we should live our life.
Oh,
And that's if we're gonna live like Christ, wouldn't why would you not die for your neighbor?
but should we like sacrifice our complete lives for?
I don't think
for
this is
other
where
people?
this is where I think it's a metaphor. I don't think that I'm physically not going to go die for you unless I have to.
That
Like
hurts.
if that
That
happens,
hurts, Mitch.
I'm sorry,
I thought we
man.
were closer than that.
But like, you know what I mean? Like, but I think the metaphor is like spiritually.
Yeah.
Like where are you willing to meet and what battles are you willing to fight spiritually? You know what I mean? And how are you willing to look at life from a spiritual level? Right? Are you willing to sacrifice the things that are in your heart for the people that you love? I think that's as close to the act of Jesus that we can get. And I think that those things, dude, look at movies, man. Like movies is a great example. I love movies because of the hero.
Okay.
Like that's the part of movies that I love the most. The one that's willing to sacrifice himself for what's right.
So if your wife came to you and said, "Hey, Mitch, I think this podcast you're doing is really impacting our relationship. I need you to give that up."
I would have to have a conversation about that.
Okay.
A deep one. Because
what if she just said, "Look, I'm not going to be happy unless you give up that podcast."
There's got to be a good reason for it.
Okay.
Because in my life, it goes God, family, work. God's first. And I feel like this is something that God has asked me to do. So if she honestly, dude, if she is going to stand in the way of that, then we would have to have a serious conversation. Because and I would have to pray about it, right? I would have to search my own heart and make an extremely difficult decision, right? Is it give up something that I feel like God has called me to or give up my marriage?
Okay. So as long as you feel that what the activity is divinely driven, then
it's hard, dude. Like this is where.
Well, what if you liked fishing? What if you liked fishing and a few times a year you went on a fishing trip with the boys and one day your wife said, "Look, I don't like you doing that anymore."
I mean, I would probably give it up.
Okay, but
for my wife.
So what if you do that and then you give up other things that you enjoy doing, and then pretty soon you're not living the life you want to live because you've given up everything for somebody else? I guess I'm just my point is like, when do you draw the line? Like
I think
how
it's
much
personal,
of your
dude.
yeah, but if you were truly living that way, why aren't you out there helping somebody right now?
Because I'm not perfect.
But I think it's noble to say, but I think we deserve to have our own happiness too. We deserve to have, like, if I don't think we should give up our happiness and our needs for somebody else.
Like I said, I think it's very situational. I think there's a lot more that goes into that than just, hey, give this up or don't. Right? Where am I at spiritually? Am I abandoning my family to go fishing with my buddies? Am I leaving my job? That's the thing. It's like your question's very surface level, right? It's an inch deep, but a mile wide.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's all stuff that I struggle with too. Like, I mean, I can't tell you the what I encountered, being a very devout Christian and a very, dedicated to a church, and then leaving my wife. Like, I can't tell you the hypocrisy I ran into and the judgment and the criticism. But, when it came right down to it, everybody that I knew for years, it was, well, hey, do you want to get together and talk? It's like, yeah, but I don't want you just sit there and try to convince me to stay a Christian, and that would be it. That would be the end of the conversation. Like, it was, you're not part of this church anymore. You're not bought into this thing that we're creating. So I no longer have time for you.
Yeah, and that's the thing, dude. Like,
these are friends of mine. These are people that I considered close friends for years.
I think that's a problem. I think as soon as we lose the human, like, dude, what about grace? You know, like, what about all of that? Like,
It only matters if you say you believe in Jesus.
I think in the situation that you were in, yeah. And dude, this is again, a lot of pain in my life came from church. A lot of it.
Oh, well,
But that wasn't God. That was people. You know, and that's my. I'm not trying to convince you to be a Christian.
I know, and taking it back to sobriety and recovery, though, like, this is something that bugs me more than anything. And like, because I'm in a lot of sober groups on Facebook and stuff, and I'll see this all the time where people will post something. It's like, Jesus is the only way, or without Jesus, and it's like, how many people got into addiction because of Jesus? How many people grew up in a toxic religious household, and Jesus is probably the biggest trigger they have. So we shouldn't be making recovery about any religion or any belief or any system at all. It's whatever's working for you.
I agree. I completely agree. And I didn't get on this microphone to try to convince people to become a Christian. I got on this microphone to share the experiences that I had and to be honest about where I'm at in my life, and to be vulnerable. And honestly, I do it wrong a lot, a lot. And I'll admit that, and if we can't admit failure, then how are we ever supposed to grow?
No.
So, and I don't know, man, like I said, like my high school quote, I don't know if God's real. There's a lot of things that happen in my life that make me believe that he is, and like I said, it in my opinion, it changes my output in the world. It changes how I look at the world. It changes everything for me. So, but I'm not going to get on Facebook and say Jesus is the only way, because there's 1,000. I mean, Aaron didn't become a Christian until 6 months after we started this podcast. It's everybody's journey is different, and right. It's not my place to judge you for where you're at in your life. And in fact, it's the opposite for me. I want to meet you where you're at and give you the tools and things that you need to make your own choices.
No. And 5 years ago, I would have been the guy trying to convince you to be a Christian if you weren't. I mean, that's who I was. So I don't see, and it's interesting too, because like when I left the church too, I had a lot of people like talking to me, and it's like, you do realize that I know all these things that you're saying. Like
Right.
I was you, and now you're telling me these things. And it's like, I have my own. So, I mean, like, if we wanted to go into a conversation where you wanted to convince me that Christianity is real, you're not going to tell me anything I haven't heard before. You're not going to tell me anything that I haven't told myself before. Like,
and
you think
yourself that wasn't true.
Yeah. You know how hard it was for me to walk away from something that I believed with all my heart. Yeah, like, and so when people sit there and they try to convince me, it's like, do you think you're going to try harder to convince me than I tried myself? Like, it's, right. And it's funny. So now when I get into those conversations with people, I find them kind of entertaining in a weird way. So, but I don't have any judgment. Like, I see my path with Christianity. It took me where I needed to go at that time. And I also see that my path with Christianity, I think, is a step in the spiritual place that I am today. Like, so I think of God and spirituality and the universe and everything differently than I did as a Christian, but I still believe there's something greater than all of us. And so, like, I recognize everything that you're talking about. That's how I was. So I don't dismiss it. I don't have any judgment. Now it does bother me though when people are judgmental, like when they think that somehow they've got some, like,
dude, and I'll be honest with you, I feel like I have this like radar for the kind of people that you're talking about. And dude, it comes back to Mel Robbins, right? Let them be that way, because what's going to happen is they're just going to destroy everything that's going on around them. You start to weaponize religion and you start to shove it down people's throats. Everything that you're trying to do is going to get twisted.
No, and if Jesus came back today, it's the Christians that would crucify him this time.
Probably.
Like that's
Seriously,
that,
dude, you're
and
probably
that's
right.
and I'm not saying all Christians. I'm not taking a shot at you, but I'm saying like generally speaking, like
Well,
when I would sit in church and I would think they're talking about the rapture, it's like all you motherfuckers are staying. You know,
Yeah,
like
it's all the-
I don't see any
It's
of
all
you
the Bible thumpers.
exactly.
dude, did you ever watch the show Messiah? It was on Netflix. And it was basically about this dude that comes to the end, basically claims he's the second coming of Christ and like walks on water and all this stuff. And everybody's up in arms about it.
Oh.
You know, like this is bullshit. There's no way this could happen. You know, so it's like I actually feel like you're right, dude. Like, you know, and if you look in the Bible, it was the religious people, right? Jesus was coming to shake their foundation, man. And
Yeah.
they were the ones that were like, they fucking killed him
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
You know, and they're the one group of people that should have backed him up. But
Well,
you know, it is, and that's human nature, dude. And human nature's so messed up. And you know, that's why I just look at my life and I'm like, all right, if you don't want to believe that, I don't have the time and energy to try to convince you. But if you want to come live this life, this jump on this path that we're on, come on.
well, like I said, I think it's a path. I think there's an unlimited number of paths that are just as good.
I agree.
And really like I said, I mean, for me, it was the most terrifying point in my life where I let go of my faith because it was all I knew and everything circled around that. But once I was able to let go, it's like now I can have these conversations. And as long as you can be open minded. Now, if you're going to sit, I mean, like I was talking to this guy who was trying to convince me of Christianity. And I told him straight out, I said, I don't see there's any value in having this conversation. He's like, well, I want to have this conversation. I'm like, okay, let's roll up the sleeves and do this then, you know,
right.
and we'll play this same fucking game that I've done a million times with other people. And he goes into all his spiel, all the stuff that I've heard before. But at one point, he's like, I mean, and he's just, everything I ask him, he's just skirting the questions that I'm firing at him. And at one point he said, well, why don't you tell me what you believe? I'm like, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
He's like, well, I'm curious. I'm like, but you're not curious. You believe that what you believe is truth and anything else is wrong. So you don't care what I believe. You just want me to say what I believe so you can try to poke holes in it. And I said, now, if you came to me and said, hey, Joe, I'm struggling with my Christian faith. And I'm just curious, like, what do you believe? Because I'm in an impasse right now and I don't know what to think. Then we can have a conversation. Then I'm happy to share what I believe.
Yeah.
But you've got your belief. I've got my belief. They're both fine. Like I don't, so I'm not going to try to convince you you're wrong.
And that's
I'm
good.
also not going to sit here and let you try to convince me I'm wrong.
Dude, and that's come back to sobriety, right? Like I think I've said, there was a gal in my outpatient class that was Neil Diamond. That was her higher power, dude. Like, and I was like, okay.
Wow.
She's like, I just listen to his music and it makes me feel happy and all of these kinds of things. And I'm like, all right, you know what? That's awesome. Like, that's not my place, you know? And it's my place is to love people and to meet people where they're at, you know? And yes, to share what I believe and let you do with that what you want, you know? But if once you start going down that road of like, I'm going to force sobriety on you, I'm going to force this on you, dude, all you're doing is putting rocks in your own backpack.
Yeah.
You know, and then you're carrying all this weight around and all this negativity because nobody's going to fucking respond to that. Nobody. You know, everybody's going to push that away. I mean, it's why I don't think that court ordered situations for alcoholics and drug addicts work well.
Oh.
You
Nor
know?
does teaching the Bible in public schools is that going to
Exactly.
I think, you know, tying it back to religion is like you can't force people to believe something. You can't. Yeah, it's all about free will. It's all about what our path dictates. And I think that's where, when you talk about let them, I think that we need to allow people to take the journey that this life has provided for them and stop trying to make them fit into our journey.
Yeah.
Because that's where all these problems come from. That's where everything comes from. Is we've got this, you work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. That was something put in, you know, we created that rule. Like all these things that we live this perfect life. Those are all stuff that's dictated by societal rules,
Right.
instead of us coming here and saying, what am I supposed to do with my life?
That's why I love like your daughter's generation, your oldest. They're asking a lot of questions, a lot of, and they're seeing the holes in that. Like, I don't want that for my
Yeah.
life. You know, I want something different. And I really think that like your daughter's generation to 25 could really change things,
Yeah.
you know, and for the good. So, and they're just tired, like they're tired of the bullshit. They want the truth, whatever that looks like.
And we're getting further and further away from being able to find, because now, oh my God, like now with all this AI crap and everything, it's even more distorted than it's ever been.
Right.
And that's why I don't like, I don't know, man. I don't really believe there is any truth. I think our purpose here is to explore and seek truth, but I don't think we ever find it. I don't think anything is black and white.
Yeah. I think it goes well beyond us
Yeah.
and like our 90 to 100 years on this planet.
Hmm.
You know, I think it
Wow,
goes
that's optimistic.
yeah, I mean, it's got it, right? Like, who knows? But
I mean, I'm thinking 60 to 70, but yeah. That's
oh,
fine.
well, dude, I'd be like 120, bro. But anyways, well, dude, we're at about an hour and 40 minutes. This took a wild turn, but I love this conversation, right? Because I think it's applicable to sobriety,
Oh.
you know, and it's really like you go into that space and it's a space of, you know, vulnerability, honesty about yourself, really pointing the finger at yourself. So this is a great conversation, man. I love it. It's challenged me in a lot of different ways. So, well, as we wrap this up, Joe, we always ask everybody, like, what's your one big nugget of wisdom that you would leave for the listener?
One big nugget of wisdom. I think one of my favorite quotes is, if we all got together in a circle and confessed our sins with each other, we would laugh at the lack of originality. And the thing is that is going back to what we were talking about with shame and everything else.
Yep.
It's like we're all walking around. It's like when you're, like, when you see somebody walking and you think, wow, it'd be funny if they tripped and fell. And then you think, oh, what a horrible thought to have. Like, yeah, but the guy standing next to you is probably thinking the same thing.
Exactly.
But, like, we have these crazy, and that's just a simple example, but like, we have this shit that we've done, these thoughts that we have, these things that we carry around, and we're like, oh my God, I'm a piece of shit because I think this way. And if we just said, hey, Mitch, I had this thought, and you'd be like, I was thinking the same thing. Then suddenly it's not shame anymore. It's associated with it. And there's that. And I'll also share something. I reached this conclusion a few years ago where I came to this conclusion, or this observation, that we're all products of our experience. We're products of our upbringing. We're products of teachings, religion, products of our parents, whatever. And that's who made us who we are today. And so when you meet somebody that's a complete asshole, they're still a human, but they're a product of what happened to them. So instead of thinking, God, what a fucking asshole, I don't want to talk to this guy, you can have compassion for the human that's underneath there that was damaged by whatever upbringing or experiences they've had. Because nobody's just born with these, traumas. This is all stuff that comes along. And so I was sharing this with my therapist one day about how, like, I just discovered that no matter how much, if I like or dislike or anything, I can still have compassion for the human no matter what they've done. And my therapist looked at me and she said, you ever think about applying that logic to yourself? I was like, fuck you.
You're like, God, why do I pay you?
Exactly. But I think that's the big thing. Is like we're all just messed up.
Yeah.
We're all screwed up. We all made mistakes. We've all done shit we regret. We've all done shit we're ashamed of. We've all had shit happen to us. And it's like, I think what we really need to do is we need to just be able to listen without judgment.
Yeah.
We need to be open-minded. We need to be able to just recognize that we're all fucked up and we're all in this together, and we got to stop being ashamed of who we are.
That's amazing, dude. And I completely agree with you. I'm not even going to add anything. That was awesome. It was beautiful.
And secondchancecomedy.com.
I was going to say, I was going to go into, okay, Joe, and we'll put this at the beginning of the episode. I'm going to have links that flash, so you guys can get to Joe's website. But Second Chance Comedy, what's your guys' website?
It's secondchancecomedy.com.
Okay.
Second is spelled out, not the number 2, SECOND, chancecomedy.com. all of our shows are listed out there. We've got, eventually I'm going to put podcasts out there. We've got a lot of media coverage that's out there. We've got some testimonials. And then I am working on actually something cool that we're going to be starting here. I'm working with Advocates for Recovery to put this together, but we're going to do a 6-week comedy class workshop thing for people in recovery, where I'm going to try to teach 12 people in recovery how to put a stand-up set together, and then we're going to have it. I'm offering it free to people in recovery. It's going to start on May 24th. It'll last 6 weeks, and then we have there's a coffee shop in Westminster that's going to let us do the showcase there for free. So then all the people that take this course will be able to do a show.
Dude.
And so I think if this goes well, I think it could be a powerful tool for people in recovery
100%.
to write about their messed upness and find ways to bring light to it instead of shame.
Absolutely, bro. That is absolutely incredible. And let us know how we can support you. Obviously, we both have young kids and families, but anytime we can be there, we will, and we'll put it out on our socials and everything like that. But
our big show coming up on June 6th at the Rialto in Loveland. So anything you can help to promote that one. I know you're up here in this area, but yeah, we're going to be up here June 6th. July 25th, we're back at Lincoln Center in Fort Collins. But the June 6th show is the next big push. And
what was the second one? July
25th will be at Lincoln Center in Fort Collins, and we've got shows beyond, in Denver and stuff too.
Yeah. Do you guys do a lot up here?
So we've done. I've done Lincoln Center twice. We did the Comedy Fort. I did Rialto once. We were at the Moxie in Greeley.
Okay, cool.
We just had that event at Ames Community College. That was fantastic. I'm trying to think of what else. And we've done Longmont a couple of times. Yeah.
Good for you, man.
Trying to get all over.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a great job. And dude, I love your perspective on life and just everything. You've got a good head on your shoulders, and
I appreciate that.
Glad to know you.
Yeah. Glad to know you too, Mitch.
So, well, with that, guys, we're going to end this episode. Thank you so much for listening. You guys are awesome. And if any of you guys are interested in getting connected to our community, Clean and Sober Connections is something that we've created kind of for real estate affiliates. But really, if you're in any kind of business, or you got time Thursday afternoon to meet from 2 to 3, that we meet the third Thursday of every month at Windsor Storage and Farms from 2 to 3. We are meeting this after. Well, never mind. You're not going to hear that. Let us know if you guys want to join that. And that's all I got.
God bless y'all.
Nothing from old Aaron over there in the corner. Okay. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Thanks.